Hello, and welcome to the Women's Rugby Show weekly podcast with me, Sam, by the way, back again for episode 37 of the pod. In the week where Bristol Bears announced the signing of USA 7-star Ilona Maher, we'll be hearing from Bears head coach Dave Ward on the signing and also previewing their game against Exeter, where we also spoke to Bears 10, Holly Aitchison. Obviously, they'll be playing Exeter this week, and we hear from Chiefs hooker and Irish hooker Cliodhna Moloney, previewing the game and also some bits around the Irish rugby heading into 2025. We'll also be hearing from Saracens Georgia Evans ahead of their game against Leicester, and finally, Emily Scarratt ahead of Loughborough Lightning's game against Gloucester-Hartpury on Sunday. Another belter of an episode, but before we get into it, make sure you check us out across all social medias. And also, if you like watching this on Spotify, give it a like and a follow. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, give it a like as well. Let's get into this one.
You could say that. Like, there's a lot of people to mention. Like Tom Luke, my assistant, was probably the more of the driving force. I've never seen someone learn law and visa law so quickly, which was quite impressive. Even I was slightly impressed by the way he went into it and how he did it. And obviously, we had to get an appeals panel in terms of, obviously she hasn't played 15s within the last couple of years, but there are the reason you have these panels is for these exceptions. And I think everyone agrees that the RFU, PWR have supported the visa application, and rightly so. And it's for the good of the game. Yeah, I think one of the reasons I spoke about it is because, first and foremost, she's a fantastic rugby player, like a really, really good rugby player who's made a huge desire to play 15s. She wants to play in the World Cup. I firmly believe that the PWR is the best league in the world. She's going to play for one of the teams in the league. Why not us? And that's kind of where we went with it. It wasn't, like, as I said, everyone knows about the social media following, and that's all well and good. And I'm a very recent person to TikTok, so I'm not all over it, unfortunately. However, I think from my perspective, we just saw a world-class rugby player who basically said, "I want to come play 15s. Where's the best league, and hopefully what's the best program?" And that's what we wanted to represent. I mean, it was definitely Tom Luke. It was definitely my assistant Tom Luke, who obviously we've just re-signed for a couple of years. So he was like the sort of like, "Look, have you seen Ilona?" Of course I have. I've watched loads of rugby. I watch rugby all the time. He said, "Wouldn't it be great if we could try and get her involved at Bears? I think she'd be an amazing asset for us." And we didn't laugh about it because I knew he was serious. It was okay, then what happens next? I'd obviously heard a couple of other clubs as well before this even happened had tried to speak to her. So I knew it was on people's radar. I just didn't know how far they'd got along with it. So yeah, we went straight away to investigation mode. How are we going to contact her? Because she doesn't follow me or Tom Luke on Instagram. So all those little bits we had to try and join the dots and find out, one, how we're going to initially contact her, and then two, is she interested, and so forth. So that's kind of where it went. And then, like I said, a lot of reading, a lot of looking up, a lot of speaking to people, talking to Jack Target in the men's group. Obviously, he's done a lot of visa applications for the men's team. Like, lots of people pulling together to work out the best case that we could put forward to our initial visa application that was rejected, to then obviously go again and bring a panel together.
A bit of a random question, kind of away from all the Ilona and Exeter stuff, but I was listening to the Good Discussing Rugby podcast, the Cardiff Met one, and they were speaking about kind of the links you've kind of been developing with them. Just interested to see how that's come about and kind of how important that could be for you going forward.
Yeah, it's left field, Sam. I like it. You've caught me on the back foot. No, look, I watch every game of rugby I can. And the University Bucks Super League is one of the best in the country in terms of actually finding those next generation of players. Cardiff Met, obviously close to us. Where do you think I found Merrill Smith and Eliane Clark last year? That was watching Edinburgh University, So I think from that perspective, just watching those, speaking to Lisa Newton, keeping tabs. Again, we had Elizabeth Cook in at training a couple of weeks ago. Just again, wanting to have a scrummage against Simi Pam and Hannah Bottoman, see how she got on. She did a pretty good job, to be honest. And she had a fantastic game last week against Edinburgh as well. So I think from that perspective is we've got our partnership with Bristol University, but they're not in the top Bucks League at the moment. We've got to also make sure we get our recruitment right for next season. And it's a great avenue for me, and it's been, touch wood, successful so far.
Perfect. Cheers, Dave. That's all. Thank you.
Like I said, she's an icon. Like, I love everything that she stands for. I love how she's empowering young girls, but pretty much everyone, like, in rugby at the moment. She's had a lot of eyes on her. And I think that's like super important. I think she knows exactly who she is, and it's something that obviously we can kind of like share views on. So yeah, it's been pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to kind of like getting to know her a bit better.
Jenna DeVere has been kind of stepping up for Bears in the centres during this kind of first block of fixtures. Just how impressed have you been with her, kind of playing with her for the first time properly in the PWR at the weekend?
I think obviously like Jenna's been part of the squad for a little while now, and I think everyone's kind of under no illusion that anyone in this squad can step up and take a place. But I think I was speaking to Tom actually about her yesterday. What impresses I think everyone within the setup is how like mature she is. She is so unfazed by any situation that she's put into or asked to kind of like play in. I think that's like a huge testament to her and her skill set. I think anyone at Bears knows like we'd like to play like kind of that free flowing style, so you've got to have the skill set to do that, and she's obviously like another integral part in that. And I think as she grows and gets older, she'll be a phenomenal player.
It was quite noticeable kind of in that first half an hour when you were on that yourself and her were kind of switching the first receiver role in the attack. Just it's something you do with Amber as well when Amber's on the pitch. Just how much do you enjoy that kind of having someone else there to be able to switch into that first receiver role and you can kind of play off them and kind of loop out the back?
Yeah, I love it. I think like it's massively important to have multiple, decision makers that can run the game. And I think it kind of takes the pressure off one person. It gives you another set of eyes to see what's going on, but also it speeds up the game. So, if you're interchanging, you're not having to run all the way into a breakdown if someone else is there and already set. So I think that's the main thought process behind it. Like, how quick can we get? Similar to what we do with England, it's kind of interchangeable, which is nice. And I think, yeah, like the quicker we can get the game moving, the easier we can get to the outside space. So it's a massive part in how we play at Bears.
Just first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. Just obviously 7 from 7 in the PWR so far. Just how kind of happy are you with the start of the season at Chiefs?
Yeah, we're very happy. I mean, I think we've had we're quite conscious we've got a little bit of luck on our side as well. We got Gloucester before they got a lot of their players back at the start of earlier on in the league, while we had some of our WXV players available. A lot of theirs were obviously unavailable. They were English players and stuff like that, so they were managed in terms of load. So we were lucky to get a win in that game. Well, it was a very competitive fixture. I think we know that the next Gloucester team we face will be very different. And I think in terms of top 4 teams, Saracens had to travel down to us as well, or traditionally top 4 teams. So they were slightly weakened after obviously having coming back off a win the weekend before. It was only 6 days before when they played Gloucester, and that was a very physical game. They got the win there, and then they had to travel down to Sandy Park, which we know is a difficult place for them to come. So I think our biggest test so far from a team that are in form, I think, is going to come this weekend against Bristol, because obviously we're going up to their home patch.
Yeah, just kind of how exciting are these big occasions? Obviously, like you mentioned, you beating Saracens, you beating Gloucester, but kind of how exciting are these big occasions? Obviously at Ashton Gate as well, the bigger ground. So just how exciting are these for a player?
Yeah, they're brilliant. I mean, it's always nice to play in stadiums and grass stadiums. There's not that many of them left in the Premiership. So that's always exciting. I definitely look forward to it as a front rower. I've never played there before, but I hear it's an amazing stadium, and I'm excited to get there on Saturday. I think they've got some really exciting players. I think Bristol play a very exciting type of rugby. They keep ball in hand a lot, so we're expecting, obviously it's going to be very physical and there will be a scrum battle, but in terms of ball and play time, we're anticipating that's going to be very high. And there's hopefully going to be a big spectacle put on for the watchers on TNT.
Important is that front row battle, obviously, full international packs. Just how important is and kind of how exciting is it for you as a player knowing you're going to be coming up against some of the best in the league?
Yeah, it's massive, I guess, in terms of preparation. As the league progresses, we would prepare equally as diligently every week, because there's lots of internationals obviously across every team. But I think particularly this week, they've got some English players, they've got some Welsh players, and they're all quite good scrummagers, and I think it will be a very interesting battle. But yeah, it's really exciting. I guess we do prepare equally each week, as I mentioned earlier on. But I think this is it just seems like a fixture that's coming at a bit of a decisive time for both teams who are in form. So I guess with respect to that, the scrum will be even more important this week.
And obviously that kind of top 4 battle for the players are kind of heating up with Quins joining the pack, the 4 from last year. Kind of just how important is that momentum going forward and making sure you are building that points to the table kind of come the business end of the season?
Yeah, it's something that we probably experienced last year. We weren't really performing at our best last year down in Exeter Chiefs. I think a lot of the players would admit that, as well as the coaches. But it's really good and exciting to see that other teams are performing now. It's good to see Harlequins back, in top four and getting some really good results. It's really good to see a bit of a change up. Obviously, we're happy that we're still in top four, but a bit of a change up in terms of other teams dropping out of it and coming back in. It means that the league is just competitive. And, as from the years, if we're going to be honest, that wasn't the case anymore, or that wasn't the case. So I guess in terms of preparation, treated every week, as I said, but hopefully we can maintain and build week on week. I think the really important thing for us is to keep building anyway.
And obviously, Tim, from an Ireland perspective, obviously you've had Dorothy at Chiefs this season. Just kind of how impressed have you been with kind of her stepping up into the PWR? Obviously, she's a great player internationally, but coming over to the PWR and kind of shining as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for me, Dorothy's a player I've been aware of for a very long time. She came into Ireland when she was very young, and I mean, for obvious reasons, she's a hugely talented athlete with lots of prospects. Just physically, she's quite a big girl. She makes her presence felt all around the park. She's brilliant to add that physicality in set piece, but also I think where her game will develop is just the consistency of those performances for her in this league. Unfortunately, still in Ireland, there isn't that much access to high quality competition year round. So I think in terms of how Dorothy will develop this year, particularly leading into the World Cup, it's hugely important because she's reached that stage in her rugby where she needs to be challenged daily and weekly now, rather than just preparing and keeping her body in check for Celtic comp or for Six Nations. She needs constant challenge, and she's come to the right place for that. Like, we've got a very challenging set piece training down in Exeter Chiefs, and that's kind of what she's looking to develop most, I guess, in her game.
And just quickly on the Celtic Challenge, obviously that's kind of hyping back up a bit soon. Just how important is that competition so these Irish girls who aren't in the PWR kind of getting that game time regularly as a side heading into a World Cup and heading into a Six Nations?
Yeah, it's huge. It just adds that other kind of element of playing against players that you don't necessarily know, being able to prep for and scout for teams that you don't have that much experience of. So, it develops your analysis and your understanding of the game a little bit because you're looking at different pictures every week. The Scottish and the Welsh teams will paint a different picture than the girls are usually getting painted in Ireland in terms of an opposition. It also just adds another element of professionalism in that, they might be flying to games, might be having overnight prep and stuff like that, which you wouldn't normally get for a regional competition. Ireland is quite small. You would know all the players that you're playing against, and you would have familiarity with the grounds that you're playing in. So it just adds that little bit of preparation that you might get before you then go into international camp, which I think is really important. But it's also important that league continues to grow because, as I mentioned, obviously Dorothy coming over here looking for an additional level of competition and preparedness. That's where she's at now in our game, and I guess other players in Ireland through the Celtic comp, they'll reach that level quite soon too. So it's important that the Celtic competition grows alongside those players' needs.
And obviously, just how how much excitement is there around rugby in Ireland kind of heading into the Six Nations next year and then a World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, a huge amount. Thankfully, it's not. Well, it is a home World Cup, I guess, in that the shortest distance will be travelled by the Irish and Scottish and the Welsh fans. And that's huge in terms of us kind of growing our following. We get great supporters anywhere in the world that we go, but I think we'll get especially good supporters in England. There's a huge amount of Irish people in the community over here in England, and I think we should have a good following all across our games in Northampton and down in Brighton, and then hopefully across to Exeter for the quarterfinals. And then from there, we see where we end up. But yeah, there is a big amount of excitement growing, but there's also, with that comes added pressure. And we've already seen, we've gone up the levels in terms of we're now at WXV1, but now we need to challenge ourselves again. And obviously, we'd have normally targeted a top 3 finish in the Six Nations. I think that needs to push on. And then this year's competition will be looking for a different result. So I think with that expectation will come, or with that excitement will come a lot more expectation, not only from us as a team, but from the fans as well. Like, they want to see results. They want to see us challenging the bigger teams and not necessarily experiencing something like what happened in Twickenham last year for the big game.
And just finally, obviously, big news from Bristol this week with the arrival of Ilona Maher. Just kind of, what's it like kind of having someone like that come into the league? Obviously, the most followed rugby player in the world. Just kind of, what's kind of been a talk around Exeter around that, and kind of how exciting could that be for the league?
Perspective thing than players. Like we're very fortunate in Exeter. We've got loads of players from all over the world, so we have that luxury all the time of experiencing different cultures and things that crossover athletes bring and sevens players bring and different environments bring. So we've kind of got a wealth of experience with that down here, and I don't think any player is really, not to be offensive to anyone, but too bothered whether she comes or whether she doesn't. It's more what it does to the media and the PR around it. So I guess it's a fan experience thing, and it's going to be Bristol's job and the PWR job and England Rugby's job to capitalise upon whatever Ilona brings. But I think in terms of rugby players, we just want, obviously it's brilliant if that means a positive thing for us in the future. But right now we're just kind of concentrating on getting as much as we can out of each other as players, as we would normally down in Chiefs, and then hopefully getting the results at the weekend.
And just one thing, kind of what you touched on there about kind of the eyes in the league. Obviously, Chiefs are one of the few teams who stream their home games when they're not on TNT. Just how important is that for a player when kind of getting the eyes on the game for perhaps people like yourself watching back home in Ireland or perhaps watching all over the world?
Yeah, it's really good to grow support, and I think I know there's lots of different minimum operating standards that the PWR are putting on clubs in order to be part of the PWR, and there's lots of different criteria that we have to adhere to in terms of medical audits, all that kind of stuff, which is very boring. But I think that is one thing that should probably be looked at going forward, is the availability of the games around the world. If we are going to grow it as a global, as the best women's rugby league in the world, then I think there should be an emphasis on each of the teams to at least have their games out there. And if we can do it down in Chiefs, and if other teams can do it, then I don't see any reason why the clubs can't get behind the other teams in the Premiership and get those games out there, because it's the easiest way to turn it into a viable product, and then to get a streaming service that accesses all of the games across the whole league.
Perfect. So thank you so much for chatting to us today, and best of luck for Bears at the weekend.
No problem. Thanks, Sam. Sorry about the mess up with the signal and stuff.
Just a couple of quick ones from me. Obviously touched on kind of Leicester at the weekend. Obviously they're coming into this on the back of beating Sale, their first win of the season. Do you think it's kind of a bit of a tough time to play them? Obviously it's always going to be home advantage and everything, but coming off the back of their first win, their spirit's going to be high and they're massively improving as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the good thing about this league, is that it's all kind of about momentum shifts and momentum swings. We said about Gloucester losing a couple of games and Leicester now winning. We've come off the back of, a loss to Quins, but again, we had our confidences from this weekend where we got our win at home. So it's all about who kind of continues that momentum and trying to get our best foot forward out there and be the first ones on the scoreboard to try and to boost our morale when we're out there. But we don't take them lightly. I don't think we can take anyone in the PWR lightly at this moment in time. Everybody is really challenging across the board. So it's just making sure that we can put a performance in that we're proud of, but also get the win as well.
And you mentioned kind of not being totally happy with the performance against Loughborough, but obviously quite noticeable kind of the game management and kind of the different ways of getting over the line, a couple of drop goal attempts, Zoe kicking penalties. Just how nice is it for that, knowing that you have these different ways of winning and it's not just getting over the line for those tries?
Yeah, it's something that we've really worked on here. I think when I first came to Sarries, which feels like a lifetime ago, but it's like 4 or 5 seasons ago now, we were very renowned for our maul tries and making sure that we were getting over in the forward pack, and it was quite tight. I wouldn't say boring, but sometimes the viewer might get a little bit bored. But we've really evolved our game, and we've worked really hard at trying to play expansive rugby, trying to get points in different ways, and just making sure that as a collective we back each other's decisions. And that's the biggest thing for us, is that no matter what decision Zoe makes or our scrum half or whoever is making the decisions, we back it 100% and we try and convert as many opportunities as we can.
And just looking at Leicester, obviously they've got Meg Jones in the centre, kind of one of the big names in that side, but there's the likes of Julia Amakwale from Canada kind of coming through. Just how exciting is it to see these faces playing for Leicester and kind of pushing them to be the best they can be?
Yeah, it's really, really good, and I'm so glad that Leicester have got their hands on these girls, and they're amazing because they're almost role models within the team for the young girls still coming through. And I think it sets precedent, how they train, how they work together on the pitch. And it's always good to have those experienced, really exciting players in your team to kind of follow. I remember when I was coming through, like looking up to the players that I was playing with. That's the most important thing. And I think that's only going to push them to be the best team that they can be. It's going to push individuals. And I'm sure that we'll see a few emerging stars coming through there over the coming seasons.
And just finally for me, obviously, Saracens are one of the clubs who regularly stream their home games when they're not on TNT. Just how important is that kind of have those eyes on the game that perhaps isn't there if they're not on TNT, and kind of getting that regular viewership and engrossing a new fan base to Saracens?
It's really important. I'm so proud to be part of a club that regularly puts us on the stage that people have access to. I know that like my grandma and gramps are always, now they know how to use YouTube, they can stream it and look on there. So it's nice to be able to connect with people like that. And I know that when people more often than not ask why you're not being streamed than why you are. And I think that's really important. So Sarries to be up there with one of them that stream it. I know Quins do it regularly, and other teams. I think the more we can get eyes on us, and again, building into next year, the fan base is growing, you connect with players, and if you can't see it, you can't be it. And we always say that about the youngsters, but also we want fans just tuning in to watch rugby and to watch a good spectacle. So that's the most important thing.
So Emily, thank you so much for chatting to us today. I hope you're well. Just kind of starting off, just kind of how much pride can you take from the week and kind of causing Saracens serious issues, making them kick the post, kind of something they don't usually do at home?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one, isn't it? Because obviously we went there wanting more than we got from the game, and I think potentially deserve more from the game as well. I think you're right. Like there was a huge amount of pride in terms of, I guess, how close we ran them. Like you say, forcing them to make decisions potentially they don't normally make. Obviously, Zoe tried a couple of drop goals as well in there. So I think those sorts of things are a compliment in a way, but ultimately, we still didn't get anything from the game, and that's probably the overriding sense of just frustration. Because also in large parts we didn't perhaps always put our game out there. So I think, it's partly frustration that we didn't maybe play the game how we wanted to, but also that there's still a lot more in us that perhaps we've not been able to show just yet.
Does it feel like you're kind of back on track in the side kind of after a tough start? Obviously that Ealing result while a lot of the players are away in WXV and kind of a difficult start to the season. Does it feel like you're back on track?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think we all really understand how we want to play the game. I think we're definitely trying to play to the strengths that we have in our team. We're not like lots of other teams in the league. Our makeup is a little bit different, and therefore we've got to try and play to the strengths of that. We're not, you're not always going to get it right. Everyone always strives for that 80-minute performance. We've definitely not got that yet, but I think we're heading hopefully in the right direction. But I guess obviously this weekend coming is the halfway point, isn't it, after that game? So we're already halfway through the season. We obviously would have wanted to have picked up more points than we have done, but in the same kind of vein, like you said, we're kind of going in the right direction, and we've just got to, I guess, keep believing in that.
Just kind of how much fun is it playing in that back line at the moment? Obviously, you like Alev, Chrissy and Fran around you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. They definitely make me feel a lot older than I used to feel in that back line. Although Alev's not the youngest thing ever either, so she helps. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. And I think, yeah, again, like it's kind of testament to how we want to play the game. We want to get people like Chrissy and Fran and Alev doing the things that they're really good at. And our game plan hopefully allows for that. You've seen Chrissy's, I think she's 3 from 3, something like that. 3 tries from 3 games. So yeah, we just need to try and get more and more of those moments if we possibly can. But yeah, hopefully there's a lot of potential there.
And just how good was it to see Sadia back out there at the weekend?
Yeah, I don't know if you watched the game, but she absolutely melted like the first 2 people that ran anywhere near her. So yeah, so good to see her back out there. Obviously, she's like a phenomenal athlete. You forget how young she is as well. Yeah, so she's going to bring a lot of kind of physicality and be such a great addition, obviously coming back into the squad and hopefully getting more minutes under her belt as we go forward.
And obviously Gloucester come into this one kind of on a difficult run of form for them. They've lost more games this season, the same amount of games this season, and they've lost in total in the last 2. Just kind of does it give you confidence heading into the game, but it kind of weirdly hype the pressure up knowing that they're going to be hurting from the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's probably maybe not the best weekend to want to play the defending champions, but I do think like we're going well in terms of how we're playing the game, as I said, the belief that we have, and yeah, the belief in how we're playing the game. So I think we just want more opportunities to put that out there. I think it was frustrating for us when we got back from WXV because we had like a game on, game off, game on, game off with the reserve and where our bye fell and all that sort of stuff. Whereas hopefully now we're starting to get some good continuity in terms of games every week. But yeah, I mean, look, Gloucester as well won't have had the start that they would have wanted. Obviously, they're in the other side of it now with all the pressure being on them, having won it 2 years in a row. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be a good game. Like two sides that like to play a decent amount of rugby. We'll be at home at the Gardens on a beautiful surface. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be a good one.
And just last one for me, obviously, a big news broke yesterday from Bear Country. Just kind of how exciting is that for the league, having someone with her kind of quality gracing it?
I haven't seen what happened. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be so good. I think you saw social media just blow up last night. I think obviously, we're constantly trying to raise the profile of the players, the league, the sport, all of those things. And Ilona's going to do one hell of a job of doing all of those things. I think it's also testament to the league and the players and the clubs and all of that she wants to come here. There's other leagues around the world that she could have gone to if she wanted to play a bit of 15s. But hopefully we're really kind of cementing ourselves as the best domestic league in the world, and therefore she wants to come here. And yeah, I think Bristol might have a few more supporters now because of that.